Okay, so before we go back into this abuser mom thing, I want to read something about Israel Keys, which government knew about all this stuff, but they're not all loners, okay? But they do keep their crimes to themselves most of the time. Um, but you'll see the same stuff here, actually, which this is what you should be concerned of. This is a tell off before anybody could be running around like, I hate this group of people. I all this garbage, 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 where they're like, remove the guns, this and that, and this and that. This is actually the stem root problem, okay? These religions, okay, and this ideology of male supremacy, and it's not just white male supremacy. Let's make a point of that. But here's a different religion that their parents had. Okay, so the family attended another church in Colville called Christian Israel Covenant Church. It's like, who the hell? I don't know. There's a million churches out here, right? Different beliefs, right? That taught British Israelism as doctrine, that miscongenization, I don't know, was abominable and deviant, that Anglo-Saxons were to rule over the perceived inferior races, and that Keyes later alleged to have been militant-like. For years, some of Keyes' children had been forced to sleep in a tent due to their cabin's small size. To survive, the Keyes children were made to hunt their food, chop firewood. Now, the hunt thing is important here because I don't know, like, if he had sisters, well, we'll get to it, but part of the religious people and doctrine do this thing to desensitize killing anything. And they teach actually that God gave animals to us, to live, and they don't have a soul, and blah, 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 blah. Okay? That's actually a really bad thing to teach kids just generally. And yes, we do. We have a food chain here. We have to eat stuff, but there's a whole thing to that. And I know as a kid, there was a whole thing that happened there. And that's a tail off. Like, it's a portion there, because when I'm talking about in the early childhood, when your sexuality comes about, right? How things just sporadically happen and you just don't know when and where and how. Certain things happen to where somebody may enjoy something that they shouldn't be. This actually falls into there somehow in a way, but there might be a lot more to it with the abusive port parts and all this other stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to point it out. Okay, so they chop wood, firewood, and work on local farms to support the family. And that was every American family, right? I mean, a lot of them. As a hobby, Keys hunted. Yeah, the hobby killing things. Awesome, dude. Anything with a heartbeat. And freely admitted to skinning a deer alive to his peers at the church. As a result, Keys was ostracized and actively avoided by various youths who attended the Christian Israel Covenant Church, with one girl recounting that Keys' presence made my skin crawl, right? Us women that are sharp, I'm like, that are sharp. We're not the ridiculous Christians over here that are kind of just bumbleheads and that totally ignored that girl, I'm sure. It's like, there's something wrong with them. But he could go into a group of people and there'd be a lot of them, mostly these Trumpsters, those guys where they hang the bodies of the animals. Oh, yeah. And the guy that broke my arm. Oh, yeah. All those guys. As a youth, Keys admitted to shooting at neighbors' houses with this BB gun. Hey, Marilyn, don't you guys sound alike? I think so. Yes, Marilyn, here's a Marilyn. Okay, all right. Starting fires in the woods. Hey, when we went camping, we started a lot of fires, but I guess he's probably trying to burn down the woods. And breaking into houses for fun. And I'm over here going, I went to pull some pussy willows into my house to jump into them, right? Keys is sitting there doing crimes, right? So criminally minded, right? You see that it's already there in childhood, right? But the parents, they're strict thing here, okay? And there's probably a little bit more to this. I don't know if they even get into all of it, but he also occasionally broke into houses with another youth who subsequently avoided him after witnessing Keys shoot an animal. On one occasion, Keys stole several guns from his neighbor's residence and was forced to apologize to his parents after their discovery of the cache. I know. So the parent, it's like, what are you doing here? You just let it be, like, let it be. On occasion, Keys, who stood 6'2" tall by the age of 14, would also sell stolen guns to local adults. Awesome, dude. Awesome. All the kids are militants. But do you see the promotion of it though? Even though maybe not all the kids came out as a serial killer, it doesn't mean all these other kids didn't come out as a rapist, okay? But there's a thing here. You're gonna see. Around the time Key's parents provided shelter to personal friends in the presence of their son and daughter and Key's sister, Keyes tied a cat to a tree with a parachute cord and gored it with a 22 revolver. The cat then began circling the tree before crashing into it and vomiting. Keyes allegedly chuckled before noting that the boy, who later informed his father, had vomited in response to the incident. Keyes had an epiphany in which he felt that he was different from his peers who ran away from him. Upon this realization, he kept his increasingly antisocial behavior to himself. And that's, you can't really keep it to yourself, dude. They're seeing it, you know. It's kind of that thing. It's kind of all up until this point. Withdrawing socially due to being ostracized. In addition, Key's mother began to notice some troubling signs in Keyes during this period. Oh, it wasn't before, the shooting at neighbor, you know what I mean? Like, all, I don't know, like, okay. So she started noticing some troubling signs in Keyes during this period when he began turning into various radio stations and different things. My brother did the radio station thing, so I don't know, what are we talking about here? By that? Troubling signs in this period when he began turning into various radio stations and different things. That? By his teenage years, Keyes had become a skilled and proficient carpenter, building his first wooden cabin for his family at age 16. He also began working for a Coville contractor from 95 to 97. Around this time, Keyes kept a journal from early childhood littered with Bible scriptures. Yeehaw! Documenting daily sins for which he felt shame, such as lusting after his girlfriend. Soon after, the family relocated to Smyrna Marine, where they collected sap for maple syrup production in a mostly Amish community. This is a nice clusterfuck of psychoticness here. But anyway, due to their mother's religious zealousness, because they really indoctrinate the women hardcore, because the men need to rape the women, so they populate for the men. So the women tend to be the most psychotic in the religion because they're the pawns, right? So then they have to take care of the children, and then the men will blame the mom. There's a cycle here, but it was always started by men, the abuse cycle. And it's through all these religions and everything else. And then they're all a bunch of dumb nuts. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this guy's like, like this, and they're just like, ah. Okay, so it says the Keyes children were forced to secretly flee their parents to watch movies with friends. There you go. Because of the abuse, right? The abuse. So you're not getting the inner story. So his mom's like a Ruby, okay? So the kids have to go around them. And then so when they get caught, they'll get way in trouble again, right? Such as the food thing. When they took the food away from me, when I started taking food from the refrigerator and hiding it under my bed, then I got in trouble again for something that they caused, right? So it's like a compounded thing where I keep getting in trouble because they keep abusing me and I need to survive. And then when I'm trying to survive, then I'm getting abused for surviving, like that thing. So I just want to lay it out. This is the creation of a antisocial piece of shit, and in this case turned into a serial killer. So you're gonna see why that happens. So this isn't like all the stories I go through. Pretty much, I mean, they pretty much have this background for the most part, yeah, if not the military thing. He has a military thing in here too, so it's this combo it's all the same though, because it comes from the same ideology. That's what I was just pointing out, because the religious teaching is very militant, right? It's very military. It's like we have these strict rules and you need to follow them and blah. So those things are together. And it's still the Godhead, it's always the male thing, but they put mom as the one that has to raise the children. So then they get this sort of double whammy of I'm mad at my mom because she's the abuser because dad's a loser and he's not around, or he's working all the time, right? So he gets to stay out of it half the time. And then, or he's a non-existent parent. That can be too. But you'll see different dynamics because in our family, it was my dad, actually. So anyways, then society as a whole hates women. So it's like this, thing like that. But the women, I mean, who you really need to target is the men because this is their ideology, and women are just the brainwashed pawns in it, and then they're used as the tool, and then they abuse the kids, and so you'll see this dynamic, and it's in history. You'll go back into the Indian, thing, them abusing people, you know what I mean? You're gonna actually see that dynamic when you when you really get that whole thing. But you have to realize that religion is created by men. A million different religions, Okay, so, but anyway, he's jumping back and forth from all these different things, and the mom is a psychotic Ruby. Okay, so, and that was very common. He was born just a little after me, so he has that 1980s parent. Basically, it goes back in the 70s for sure, but I was trying to, when I was doing the historical thing about that particular abuse, because I know where it came from. It goes back quite a few generations. How far back, I don't know. It could go back into the 1800s, it could go back into the 1700s, it could go back into 12 something something. I don't know how far back it goes, but I do know it goes back at least several generations. The food thing, the starving thing, you don't get to eat unless blah. Uh, yeah, but it was a total 1980s parent thing, for sure. And it would probably have gone into the 90s. You would just have to hear more kids talk about it that are now adults from the period of being raised in the 90s. Did your mom do that? More than likely, because I don't know why they would stop doing it. Because if you're seeing it cycle now from 1980 and cycle into just throughout that whole time, we're in 2023. So it has cycled that whole period, that whole span of time, right? The 1980s, 80s to 90s to 2000 to 2010 and 2023. It's like 40 years of us. 40 years something that cycled. So then there's other parents right now doing that, right? So you're going to see this cycling through history historically, and that's why there's so many serial killers. Yeah, it is explainable. Like they're sitting there going, don't make sense of it. I was like, well, we made total sense of this. Are you guys dumb? Yeah, you guys are dumb. No, because here's the thing, because when they're thinking about it, they're like, it's not me, so we're not looking at me as the problem. I don't see anything wrong with what I do, and I'm also a sociopath. That's kind of the thing going on there. Okay. On one occasion, Keyes declared his atheism. Now, this is what they would focus on. Oh, atheism. He's an atheist. He just turned to a devil. Blah blah blah. Yeah, that's nice. If that was the original thing that happened in childhood before he, the thing that led him off into turning, this way. Because you see, there was a history here where he's already an antisocial by the they didn't really give an age here. He's already antisocial by his teen years. Okay, so prior to that, there's some. They may not have asked him the proper questions when, like, FBI was talking to him about his childhood. So what happens is like they could have been beating him, in the way that they were doing these structured things, just like the Ruby thing. And so it could be a constant thing like that. And then so like there is a point where he's like trying to be good and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, he started really enjoying bloody mass murders. Okay. So, this is the area that you needed to tackle. Okay. But for some reason, government has all this information, right? It wouldn't be on Wiki if nobody knew. And they didn't want to even tackle it. Like, it's in every story, like this weird dynamic of overly religious parents, military crap, kids starting to think the guy's weird because he's being a little over. And it's the same story with the other guy that took off, and he's the same way. In fact, they could be best buddies, you know what I mean? But then, but that's not the only type that comes out of it. Like, that's sort of the extreme side of that. The rest of them are a bunch of rapists and they're criminals, and then they have the capacity to kill, and they may kill it another day. They're not serial killers per se, but at the end of they may have a flip out one day and just take out their entire family, right? Or they may one day, it's not a thing where they woke up at 50 and they're like, God, I'm having a breakdown and I'm going to just kill everybody. No, there's like this total thing that's been going on this whole time. Like, it's this long stem, thing from childhood. So, like, I can get every information about somebody as long as I know about that childhood. And for some reason, these parents want to sit there and go, oh, they're just kids and we need to ignore all that. And it's just this thing. I go, that's what made you up, and that's why you're so shitty now. And so we could go back into your childhood and figure out why the fuck that you're that fucked up right now as an old damn woman, Karen. Yes. That's what I'm saying. I have gone through so many of these cold cases, like all these cases with serial killers and all that shit. All their stories are like this. Like, it has some variation of this type of thing, or somebody got tossed in the street, or some bullshit. But anyway, this is where it gets good at the end. On one occasion, Keyes declared his atheism to his parents, and that's the worst thing you could ever do. Both of whom he had previously made tireless and constant effort to please. Now, see, if he had a loving relationship with these people, you may have been able to tackle this. Like, there's a lot to this, but they're evil, cold-hearted abusers. So they go after an intense argument. This led his parents to evict their eldest son from their residence, and then shunning him for apparent blasphemy, and then instructed his younger siblings, who looked up to Keyes, to never contact him again. And Keyes then developed an interest in Satanism, which Satanism doesn't teach you to go out and serial kill a bunch of people, but anyways, some weird version of it. Probably the Christian version of Satanism. Oh, I don't know, with plans of committing a ritualistic murder. I don't know where that came from, because when I had to study that stuff, the only major things that I was reading about, like for any sacrificial things, was Santeria, where I was kind of disturbed because they were killing chickens and shit for fucking bullshit, and I was like, keep those people away from me. Yeah, there was there was a few religions, I think, that did things like that, where they had animal sacrifices. Um, Satanism did not have human sacrifice. That was a Christian, made up version of it. So Satanism is kind of like, sort of like the mockery of Christianity, where they don't actually believe in a devil. Though if you get into those demonology people, like, I don't know what the correlation is, if it's the Satanism that go off the demonology thing, or what that was about. It was like a separate study when I got that stuff. It was it was about all the, the fallen angels. So basically, those are the fallen angels, kind of a branch off of Christianity. And I don't know. Anyway, there's so much garbage out here, I don't even care. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's nice to know, like today, as I'm going through stuff, to be educated on those different things. Everybody's bullshit. Like, everybody's bullshit, though. But yeah, so ritualistic murder. So now they had rituals. They certainly did. Like, they had spell casting and a whole bunch of different things. But not. I don't know what some people did. Some people went off on, but they make up their own thing, just like any other person. It's like, oh, I like this part of it. I'm gonna add this to it. This sounds like a good idea. This seems right to do. Anyway, so is that not a good example of how Ruby could create a friggin' serial killer? Now, what I'm saying is, if somebody caught him right here, and I don't know how old he was when they evicted him, but they were doing this to children, and so, and they may have a life of crime. I mean, I would hate life. Think of being this child right here. His parents are so abusive. And and it's very, like, their family sounds somewhat secluded. Like, there's a thing to it. Like, they're secluded, so they don't get a lot of information from the outsiders. Then the children are taught. The children are being bullies too, as well, like in some way. Because what they should have did was like, I think something's wrong with this kid. He might be getting abused at home. Like, this should be what other kids should be thinking, okay? Not just that, oh, this kid is weird, because he is weird. But not just that. It's that, oh, that's a flag that their parents are abusive at the house. We need to have somebody go in, CPS, and take a look at this. That's what should have happened. The kids are ignorant because the parents made the kids ignorant, right? So there's a whole thing here you could learn by. And you don't want to keep the kids ignorant, because then they don't know what the hell's wrong with them. They're like, he's a weirdo. It's like, yeah, he might be a weirdo, but the fucking parents here, okay? So they abused him horrifically to be going on like this. And he just doesn't seem to understand when he's going through this thing as to why he's doing this. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know how much he got physically beat or anything like that, because it's not really here, such as spanking and how he was being disciplined. But they are definitely abusive here, because they're like, you're evil. You need to get out, and we're going to toss you out, and nobody can ever talk to you again. I mean, what shit is that? That's abuse, right? Yes. So, and they wouldn't let him believe in anything else. And it was not a house where he was able to develop empathy for our gender. That's number one. And he may not be developing, well, just the general ideology of the religion doesn't let boys develop that empathy. But two, if your parent, your mother, is being abusive, then that empathy is not really created there, right? So then they create these evil moms, these abusive moms that were abused by men. That's why I'm trying to explain this cycle of things. So it's not like these women. It's like, no, these men had abused women. And so then she's abusing her son. And so then, the ideology is teaching them, don't treat women well. They're below us. I'm the man of the house. This shit. But anyway, then she's being abusive to him. So he has no empathy. Like, he doesn't like her. Like, there's an underlying thing where it's like, I'm trying to be the best kid that I can be, but she keeps abusing me. And I, have this like inner hate, for this thing, right? So then it says, but it does say both parents. So yeah, both parents. So he has a hate for everyone. And he does end up killing everyone. He does kill men and women. He killed a couple. So, and he may have killed more couples. So he doesn't have like a one specific, but he has a really lower opinion about women. So yes, you'll see this dynamic here. So both his parents, male, female, um, they kicked him out. So they were both abusive religious fundamentalists. They kick him out, and so then he's like starting to plot to kill like couples and young women, and it's been questioned if that date thing in Rancho was this guy. Yeah, I have a question. I can't rule him out. Like I said, we talked about some of the things of that case. I'm not sure who that is, but whoever it is, he's ultra dangerous, and he's actually like a twin to Israel Keys, like in everything. Because I was like, I remember him saying he was just a tad younger, and then he was tall, and then he left a book and he disappeared for a month, and he came back, and yeah, there was just some things about it. I was like, holy shit! And then he tried to kidnap me to an ATM, and then the cops are like, "There's a serial killer out here." I'm like, yeah. But anyway, if it's not him, he came from a same household. Like we're talking about that whole thing right here. And there's these big YouTube channels that are scared to death to talk about, like, because they get targeted. This one girl got targeted by the Ruby team. I was like, yeah, I go, usually the sociopath, like, abusers, they go all out. Yeah, they don't like, because the narcissist part of them, they don't like you talking negatively about them. And so you have the right to talk about them. We have the right. It's a news story. And you have a right to call it out if you see child abuse online. Um, yeah, but some reason they came after them and tried to do a copyright thing on them or something. So then when they talk, this is the thing about YouTube that I really hate. They're afraid to say certain words that if they do, they'll get demonetized. So they don't want to target the religious part of this, and we need to target the religious part of this. So they don't want to, a number of things, like they don't want to get this backlash from their followers, and I'm fine with the backlash, but the thing is that this is facts, okay? And we can go through all these. They're just very uneducated people. A lot of them are sociopaths anyway, so they're gonna act in the way that they're gonna act, so they need to go to a head doctor. This is what they did to their kids. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too damn long. I was just going to run down something really quick in relation to it because they did another story of this. And yeah, I heard the friends said that, yes, we went to the cops and they did nothing. I go, yeah, if you guys remember during the Brian Laundrie case, how the Utah, wasn't it in Utah? In Utah or Idaho, somewhere. Anyway, they were terrible when they stopped. That's when they came up and they blamed the woman, right? Because that's Utah, okay? So they went and told Utah cops and all them, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then so the kids could have died. Yeah. So they did do their due diligence. They did go and report this stuff, and then the authorities didn't do shit. Yeah, there you go. I don't have a problem with them doing some of the video stuff, but they're abusers, okay? So TikTok has also exploded with videos exposing Frankie for allegedly withholding food from her kids, exploiting them, and accusing at least one daughter of faking an eating disorder. I know when I got my eating disorder, my dad started abusing me more about it. Can you believe this? They caused it, and then that happened. And so I've been actually talking about that because I'm not sure if some of these girls actually don't realize that maybe some of the stem offs to their eating disorders was from childhood abuse. Because that was a common thing to withhold food. It's about power and control, right? So that's so old. It was back in black and white movies. In fact, you could probably search back and find some freaking old fucking movie during the Nazi era there or something, where they're like, you can't eat any fruit because you're being a bad boy. Like some bullshit, dude. They did this all the time. And then so that would be the tail off to an eating disorder, like some type of thing, because you have to have some sort of concept of power and control with that. And I know for a fact in our family it was caused by my dad's mother, and then my dad, and then my mom has an eating disorder, but she like I would say she was part of it, but she didn't start it. It's sort of like she's standing on the side, just like whatever, whatever, thing, and letting it happen. And then the next person that did it was her next man that she got with, and he started it too. So this is telling you something, because I'm like, why are all these people doing the food abuse? It's not out of ignorance, you guys. It was out of pure evil abuse. Okay? And then what happened was, then I developed the not that's probably in there too, but bulimia, right? So then I started developing that later, at a later point, because the kids at school started teasing me. So then there's all these additions. It's not just at home now, and I didn't even care. Like, I had no concept. Like, they're sitting there doing that, but I didn't care, right? But then now I'm going to school, and they're all doing this shit, and they're making me, and so now I have the whole world, right? The whole world is against me now, okay? So then I developed that, and then my dad finds that out, then starts abusing me for doing that, like it's something I could just stop or something, you know what I mean? Then starts abusing me for that. Then they started bringing this other girl with an eating disorder around me, and this was so ridiculous. So before that even started, this girl was like, she had the same problem, or she looked like Eugenia Cooney, okay? And they're telling all the kids, are like, don't stare at her, don't stare at her. It's rude to stare at her. I'm like, you can't not stare at her, dude. So, but anyway, I didn't look at her. And then at some point, she gets healthy and then gains the weight back. She lost all her teeth or something and got like false teeth, something like that. Then they talked to her to talk to me, which was so annoying. She's so sweet. Like, I had nothing with her. So she's like telling me the warnings, warnings, warnings. And I was just like, well, yeah, but, I'm not that bad. You know what I mean? Because I actually never got to the point of her. Never in my life, thankfully. But yeah, so they were using her. That was the way they were trying to tackle it, is send me another person with the eating disorder who, is not going to stop any of that. So, then yeah, so this is how they were teaching. This is how they're going at it, you guys. But they're the ones that started it. And now if I talk to that woman, I don't know if she's alive today. She was actually, I think she was 10 years older than me. So she might be, I don't know. Unless she went back into that. But, no, like, the initial thing about it is the parents were removing food from everybody. If you were bad, then you don't get dinner. You don't want to eat that, then you don't eat nothing at all. You're ungrateful. This, blah, blah. We all need to eat dinner together. Do you see how important that is to these son of a bitches? I don't even get it. It's psychotic. It's nonsensical. If you don't eat with somebody, who fucking cares, dude? Maybe I don't want to watch them chow down. Maybe it grosses me out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, and everybody works, you know what I mean? So some people come home and they eat at different times, and you go to school and you have to get your lunch at different times. Like, what the fuck is with this damn eating together shit, you know? You have Christmas. And Christmas is for Christians. Like, they have fucking everything. Okay, so this is what was so crazy to me, though. It says, the Utah mom was charging parents up to $15,000 and as low as $5,000 as a mental health counselor for parents as mental fitness trainer. I was like, are you kidding? I'm going to charge $20,000. I'm going to tell you how to beat up your kids. I'm going to tell you how to abuse your kids. I mean, that's basically... I should be charging this how to treat your kids well. Honest to God, I think I could be like the best expert on that. Kids love me most of the time. It's only when this other shit happened that it causes problems, dude. When your parents are shitty. But no, but generally, why do kids like me and they hate their parents? I mean, or they have a problem with their parents, right? They'll run to me. They'll run to me, dude. So there's a reason for that, because there were some people saying it's bad to act like you're their best friend. Something weird like that. No, you want your kids to not fear you, okay? Like you know the fear thing that's in there. There was actually a really good article on this I pulled up the other day, and I don't have it up right this minute. Where is it? Did I save it? Hopefully I did. I got an older story of theirs from 2020 talking about the way that they parent is about power and authority. So it's teaching like authoritarianism. And I was trying to point out that yes, so that's a learned thing. So that's why when they get older, then they turn into a Hitler, right? Cause and then they start saying that other people are being authoritarianisms. And I'm like, that's what? When they're the ones teaching their kids that, right? So they're saying, when you're in my house, we have these strict rules and only one way goes and that's it, right? So it's teaching that militant, military Hitler thing. Now, Hitler's parents, from what I looked at, unless I didn't look at something right, they were Catholics. So that's where it actually matters, right? So the Catholics were heavily into abusing children. Hitler may have been molested. We don't freaking know, okay? Something really bad happened with that dude, and so the tail off for him to go from point A to B, he had to have been a sociopath before he started coming up with this shit. Because as you see with Israel Keys at the initial part, I don't know if he was such a hateful little shit, but it started building up because everybody's treating him bad. So it starts to become this big fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and fuck you, and fuck you, and fuck you, right? You'll start seeing this thing. And then he'll just start picking out groups of people that he hates or what he wants to do, and he finds the enjoyment of doing those things. It's kind of all, it just kind of comes together in this terrible soup, and I just call them scrambled egg brains because to fucking even get there, it's this long process, and the wiring is like all kinds of whack. But it actually makes sense when you follow the trail of what happened. Like it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I would be mad at my parents if they were treating me like this. So then wiring right there, I hate my parents. Then over here, it's like, oh, these kids are treating me, like I'm a cancer. Okay, F those kids. I'm gonna go shoot up a school, right? Like you start seeing this thing. Like it makes sense, but it's all kinds of whack, right? But the stem off is from the abuses. And the abuses don't necessarily have to be physical, but a lot of times it's kind of a combo of physical, mental, emotional abuse, okay? So, I'm here to educate so you don't make any more aspd son of a bitches that go out and murder us all, okay? Because we women tend to be the main focus of these son of a bitches, regardless if it's a female socio or a male socio. That we do, because who's the parent most of the time? The mom. The dad's like, you go spay the guy. But my mom actually didn't do most of the um punishments as my dad, and then I'd run to my mom, and then sometimes my mom would flip-flop and then want to start coming at me. But for the most part, it was my dad. They were both psychotic. That was the craziest fucking I was so happy when they got a divorce. There was like no sadness in that whatsoever. None. Son of a bitches are finally gonna separate and shut up. I honest to God, I did. There was all these kids like having this problem. They're like, my parents had divorced. I'm like, shit, dude. I wanted to have a fucking house party. I was like, do you guys understand the hell that was? They would fight all the fucking time. You're like, shut the fuck up. Oh, you guys are gonna finally separate? You mean I can finally sleep in peace without their fucking mouths? Yeah. I was so happy. It was crazy. And then it was like, oh, now we get two houses. Like it was a great experience. I mean, not living with them, but I mean, it was like a great thought. Like, oh, cool. Now we get to have this and that. And, I don't know. That's where my brain was. And maybe other kids should look at it like that too. Isn't this great? Now you get to have two different things going on here. Up until the step parents come in, and they all were abusive. Every single one of them on both sides were majorly abusive. They're the people that are like the Chad Daybell that comes in and they're like, you know what? I don't want your kids. abuse them. Yeah, but that's a reflection of my parents because you obviously are looking for your abusive mother, and my mom is looking for who knows, another abuser. Because at that point, like if somebody's treating your kid like that, you wouldn't be with them. And there was other guys in here that were nice to me that she didn't like. I'm like, well, they were nice to me, dude. So I mean, they could have been pedos. I don't know, but they were nice to me. And in fact, they were trying to, what it seemed like when I'm looking back, it seemed like they were trying to show her that they're good with kids and that they're accepting of kids so that she would be with them, right? But yeah, that could also be a sign that they want to prey on me and not her, you know. But I don't think that was going on. That's nervous. Like that, I mean, you're going into somebody that already has a kid and the kid has to, you want the kid to like you, right? Not these people that these two picked. Theirs was, you need to get rid of them. They're trash. That's the one that my dad's with now, or was. I don't know who's alive. Those two old pieces of horrible shit. Yeah, they sat there and were just like, she's like doing this thing, like Israel Keys. You're lucky I didn't turn out to be a serial killer, because those two would be the first to go. Honest to God. I was like, yes. After what I found out, oh, mm-mm. Yeah, they were extraordinarily abusive. That's why they dumped their kids in the street. They were, this is so normal. Who's acting like they never heard anything? This was not considered child abuse. Oh my God, you know what they called us when they would because apparently this mom Ruby had left her kids alone, right? So she would leave them alone and take off for weeks, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, the last person I know who did that was that loon psychotic in Riverside. And when she did that, she was taken off to do drugs and taken off with her brother, which we think they had like some weird ancestral thing going on. Fuck yeah, that shit was crazy. She would take off for weeks on end. And so this lady was doing that too. And she said something like, I have a secret, but I keep getting away with it. Maybe no one will ever know about it. And I'm like thinking, oh, maybe she is off doing drugs. And maybe that explains her weird, like, personality changes. But they said, no, when we were a kid, they called it something else. Okay, so they reframed leaving your children alone as do they call them latchkey kids or something? It was all abuse to like, yes, latchkey kid. And they didn't consider it child abuse. They didn't consider it nothing. And it told it, my friend, I swear, I was like, she doesn't have parents. It's like a TV show where they just never show the parents. It's like some young kid. It's like I don't know, do they have parents? We don't know if she has parents. Like they were never there. It was the fucking craziest thing. All night long. Never. I'm like, do they live here? Do you live there alone? They come home sometimes. I'm like, I have never seen them. So she's having parties over there, like we're playing pool, we're there all night, and she's drinking, and there's not a single adult ever that came in, never, ever, like, ever. They reworded it and called it latchkey kids instead of child neglect. The number of children left without direct adult supervision continues to grow yearly, in part because family instability, single parent homes, and two working parent households are on the rise. Yeah. So that was the reason, because like both our parents worked. But we did have a babysitter up until, okay, so yeah, okay, when I was with my dad, we always had a babysitter up until like my junior high time, somewhere around there, right? Then they were like, you guys you're old enough to fucking, yeah, take care of yourself in the house, But this is where trouble happened. Not with me, but you're talking about some other kids where that was kind of, there was a lot of things going on. And the parents were too absent, right? They're just too absent, so they're not there to, it's neglect. It's neglect. Just straight up, it's neglect. But when I was young, before that, then my mom actually, when I was in sixth grade, no way, she left me by myself. Like, alone. Like there's no brother, no nothing. It's just me. And luckily, I was a good kid regardless. I could have been doing a whole bunch of other crap. But other kids that could be a different story, right? They're off killing animals and shit. Um anyways, they didn't do the 2 week thing. There's no way in hell because my parents think in their mind I'm gonna have a major rager party and tear up the house like in the movies of the 80s. I don't know why they think that. I don't. I honest to God don't. Like it's unreal. So it must have been the brainwashing of Rush Limbaugh or something. But yeah, that's the thing there. Um, yeah, but they just call it latchkey kid. It's just child neglect. That's just all that is. I mean, it's that's. I mean, it's beyond that, but it's child neglect. Yes. So Ruby did this to her kid for 2 weeks. I honestly cannot imagine my parents leaving for 2 weeks. I'd be so happy if they fucking left for 2 weeks as a kid. I'd be like, you leave for fucking 2 weeks? I'm having my friends over, we're gonna watch movies, and we're gonna kick back. Like that, yeah, party. Yeah, it's a major party. No, but we would do that. Probably do crank calls. Probably do crank calls. No, they honest to God thought I would have this like major rager, like and bring like I wouldn't want any of these guys over at my house. These guys were gross, dude. I'm like, men were disgusting to me. No, I was like, no, the kids at our school were disgusting to me. The guys at our school. There was only a couple guys that I was like, oh, he's kind of cute, he's alright. But I wasn't interested in for the most part, I wasn't interested in anybody in school. I was very future forward. Like, I was thinking of my career, and I was very heavy in my career. Like, that's all I could ever think. It was like the OCD of my career that I am going to, I was structuring my life. So I was constantly like, calculating like okay I gotta like do this, I gotta do that, I can't be over here partying and doing drugs, I can't get involved in that crowd. Like I was honestly thinking like that. I was like my friends are being bad, I need to go tell on them, you know what I mean, to their parents. My friends are gonna get me in trouble, like some of those things. um mm-mm mm-mm I don't know, dude. It's all made up in his head. Like, I don't know. Like, I just think about it. I'm like, I have no idea where they got that from. The only parties that were going on were the ones that my friends dragged me to. It wasn't like, oh, let's go party. My friends was like, oh, I got this thing over here. Can you drive me over here? And I'm like, okay. And we go, and it's like some fucking apartment. These people are like partying around, and I'm just like, whatever. Like, I'm being dragged along to it. It's not something that I wanted to do, and it wasn't something I was against doing either necessarily, but it was just kind of like, I don't know who any of these people are, and nor would I. So here's the thing with the Keys family. I somehow jumped over this one sentence. And were forbidden to learn musical instruments as they were against God. And sometime during this period, Keys renounced his former Christian faith. Yeah, I mean, if an instrument, okay, yeah, they had the typical 80s parents. So when you saw the Duggar documentary, if you've never seen the documentary, you really should see it. I mean, I don't watch the Duggars. I don't even get into that kind of bullshit. But the documentary itself was just like, yeah, that was every fucking parent. And they don't realize it was every fucking parent. That's the difference. They think that it's secluded to this group of people right here. And I'm like, nah. That was every fucking parent. So why wasn't I allowed to have a guitar? Like it's another thing where it's like this weird control thing, right? And when you go into the Duggar thing, they did touch on it with the musical instrument thing. And then in their version of it, they made it racist. I'm like, how did you even do that? It's power and control, okay? And then they'll add things to it, because I don't know if that other guy was even religious at all. The guy that my mom, hooked up with over there. It was just about power and control. Like it was almost like the straight reason like why they did it, power and control. And then in the Duggar thing, they did it as being I remember churches saying rock is the music of the devil. I remember that thing. The only portion I agree with that is that they're a bunch of pedophiles. But as far as that goes, the instrument itself is not evil. So then they're like, yeah, that they're like they were heavy drum players, in the African jungle, like some weird shit. And they're like, and it was evil. So we had to remove everything that they loved and get rid of it because it was satanic. You know what I mean? And then it turned into racism, right? Do you see that? It's a power and control thing, but it needs this lead off, like, in order to go there. So if you just start targeting, like, don't be racist, you need to love everybody. Well, try telling Keys that when he's already a sociopath now. He's a sociopath now. So telling a sociopath that now is a joke because they're already formed into something that has no cure. And these are the steps into it. Like you might look at it and think that, oh, it could be cured. No, because at the point that at the end of this, he's forever that way. And he takes himself out, not even because, he might have depression in the sense that he doesn't identify with anyone at all. But really at the end of it, it's just sort of like, I'm gonna fuck y'all and I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life in prison, so I'm just gonna go. Like, there's this level of that. I want to get to the point where you actually feel bad for the guy because, it's very vindictive at the end of this. It turned into, he could have turned into a whole different person, right? Like, you have choices. Even with your ASPD, you have choices. And he chose to come after us all. So that's the thing about it. But I'm saying if you see this middle portion here in the early portions, because they don't target it typically here, there's no way to know really if you come into this portion here and try to disrupt it, if you can change the course of what happened here, right? So I'm trying to shine a light on it because as you see, Maryland turned into a big clusterfuck, right? Because and he's sitting there talking about it. He's like in 1999, right before the shootings, he's like, I was like shooting at the kids, and then I started shooting at my neighbors, fucking recently. This whole thing about it. He's doing this. Like, he's at Israel Keys. So he relates to the ASPD. And so he, yes, I understand him a lot, actually. And it's kind of weird because in some way with him, like, he has sort of some humanity, but not a lot. Like, there's a little bit more than this dude. But it's like that one. Yeah. And when you go back, he likes to play with words, and he's actually not very bright. Like, I guess it's just because of how the way he talked. But yeah, when the dynamic with Depp, because Depp is more dumb than he is. And Depp's like off abusing him too, so they just like abuse each other. I go, that's interesting. They don't see anything wrong with it because they're both abusers, so abusing each other is totally fine. It's kind of like that kid dynamic where everybody's like abusing each other, and I'm looking back at it now going, what the fuck, dude? But you tend to grow out of that, and that should have been stopped anyway, but I did, they didn't, to grow out of it, and then, and maybe they just didn't. That's the thing, and that's why they're being shitty today. Like, that's the thing. I go, I have no idea what the fuck their problem is. I go, if anything, it should be me sitting there telling everybody to F you and don't ever contact me. Because it's them that set me up in situations that, and like I said, some of it is really out of ignorance, but in situations where I have long life harm from it, and then, but then there's some in here where, like, some other situations happen from other adults that, we knew and stuff, and then some things may have happened, and you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole, man, there's a lot in that. But really, at the end of the day, out of anything, I was used the most by everybody just to get like cars and things and whatever. And none of these people would, pay for phone bills or fucking anything. And it was left on me. And they constantly felt good about themselves when bad things happened to me. It was really fucked up. And I noticed it. And, yeah. And they were the ones that were the worst problem of anybody. I never did the stuff that they did. And I tried to steer clear from all those type of things because they would have dragged me down. If it was up to them, they would have had me live in there forever just to hang out there to be used by them all. That's really how I feel about it, because it's like, well, at no time did anybody really care about me as a person, so it's just, oh, you have the car, oh, you're gonna go do this, and oh, we can get this for, I don't know. It's that kind of level of things, really. I know, and then you find out that these horrible things happen to me, and then they're gone. I'm like, wow. I guess, see, that's very telling. I go, I would never do that. Like, I was like, my door was always open, even still today. Not now. I think today I probably will finally be like, that's just too bad. Because that's just where it's at. They never made attempts to, no, they never asked, how are you doing today? Like, there's a lot of things to it. Like, they're very self-centered. Me, it's just, I didn't talk a lot then. It's me, like, listening, and then I just sort of, like, internally, like, I'm thinking, wow, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? That's a different thing. That's a different thing from not caring. It's just I'm not as verbal like back then, like on those things. But no, it wasn't like I ignored it. Because I'm reflecting on it now. Obviously, I didn't ignore anything. And I think all kids were dealing with abuse. So, he started a crime in 97, 98, Israel. And then the military thing. It just makes sense that it would then go to the military thing. Oh, history. Let's see. Keys targeted random people all across the U.S. Uh-huh. And he claimed to not kill children or parents of children, primarily because of his daughter, whom he feared finding out about him and his crimes. However, police and FBI were skeptical of this claim and suspected Keys of killing several teenagers and children. Yeah. Why see, they do this bullshit. Like, that's kind of the same in the other story where maybe he gave some bullshit to the sister, like, I don't know why she thought that. I don't know where she got that story from, where he took him out probably because they didn't want to feel the pain that he is. So maybe he started as verbalizing some garbage to them, like Israel here, and maybe all it is I would have to think on it, but but they're pathological liars too. So that's the other thing about it. Maybe because he doesn't feel as happy about those ones, but maybe because he did it and then he's like, man, I'm not really getting that much of a satisfaction out of doing this. But the rest of these trash people, so it's like, oh, you're gonna kill me because I don't have a fucking kid, you know what I mean? They're all automatically rapists because they don't believe in consent. The religions don't believe in consent. There's literally no religion that I know that actually believes in consent. So they don't teach consent. And consent, though, on its own is not the problem. It's the sociopath that's the problem, because the socio doesn't care about anybody having agency. It's about them, right? So you could tell Israel about don't rape women all day. You need to learn consent. He knows that it's rape for, you know what I mean? So he's doing it because he's getting power and control. It's a hate crime. Here he goes. He admitted twice attempting rapes of women, once with the prostitute. And the word prostitute should not be used in any of these stories, by the way, because that's the addition to this stuff. The degrading and dehumanizing women as a whole with these derogatory terms. It's like throwing the N-word in there. It's like, what are you doing here? We're in 2023. Why is this word still here? While on leave in Egypt. It's a hate crime, right? If a serial killer is doing it, it's a fucking hate crime. Rape in general is a hate crime. It is not about, I'm so dumb, I need to learn consent. The part where kids need to learn consent. So they need to learn consent, and they will also, the thing about kids is that they need to be aware of what is rape, because when Israel comes along, they need to be able to verbalize that Israel here, the sociopath, is trying to commit a hate crime on me. Okay? So it's more for the non-sociopath to know what consent is, really, because the hate crime of rape, they already know. They don't care. That's the thing about it. You can't just sit there and teach them and act like it's just, do you think he's not ignorant to it? He knows that he's raping people. Okay? Men, socios like to lie and scheme and not take responsibility for themselves and why and how they started this whole sexual, these sexual crimes, right? They're just hate crime. These crimes in a series of how women then became abusers, and because they were raping them very young, and then they were abusing them, and then they turn into these horrific monsters, as we see, right? But there's a cycle of things, and men will not take accountability for this. The women did not start the religions, okay? Yeah, what woman's like, oh, I need to be controlled by this man with no rights to vote. Please rape us when we're 10. Like literally none. That was never. And it's written, it says, it's flat out. We brainwashed them. So let's see what else he did. Okay, he believes to have resumed his killing spree in 2001 following his discharge. Keyes had ties to New York, and he owned 10 acres, a cabin in the town of this thing. He also confessed to committing bank robberies in New York and Texas, and FBI later confirmed that Keyes robbed the bank, and then told authorities that he burglarized a Texas home and set it on fire. That's why I'm like, I don't know, this guy could have been him that I was on a date on. That shit was fucked up. And so here it's like, it's stated that he burglarized 20 to 30 homes across the U.S. and robbed several banks between 2001 and 2012. So why'd the guy try to get my ATM, right? I go, how many dates have you guys gone on where the guy... This is the second date. So it wasn't the first date. It wasn't a guy trying to rob me on the first date. He brings a book and he wants to return, but he doesn't tell me he's going to return. He brings a book acting like it's a gift, right? And I wasn't interested in going back on a date with them. This is kind of the truth of it, but because that's why I didn't call back. But he calls me, and I'm thinking, we could probably be friends, like us talking with business stuff, because we were looking at entrepreneur stuff, which is revolving around the housing market. And he's like, can I come get the book? And I was like, randomly, like weeks later. Could have been a month. It could have been 2 months. I don't know. There was a big span of time here. I'm like, that's odd. Sure. You can come back and get it. And he's like, would you like to go to dinner on top of it? Like, it was being like that. And I was like, yeah, why not? Why not? Why not? Right? So it was like that. It wasn't anything else. And like I said, it turned into a serial killer type of nightmare, almost robbery. It was scary. It was really scary because it was happening at the dinner place. It happened from the minute he took off. And I was like, the guy's not talking. I don't know what's wrong with him. Why is he mad? Like, I don't get it. What's going on here? Maybe he's having a bad day, you know? I was totally thinking that, but I didn't feel good. Like, it was, I don't know, dude. That seat was too low, like Ted Bundy. And I'm like, I don't know, man. So then I'm sitting there just like, I don't know. So we go to the restaurant, and like I said, he wouldn't eat. And I'm like, why do you ask me to eat then? He's the one that asked me, you guys. It wasn't me asking him on a date. He's asking me to go. So why would he take me to go eat and he's not going to eat? And then he's staring at me, fuming, pissed. Like I didn't do anything. And I'm creeped out and I couldn't flee. And then after that, he's like, we're going to go to an ATM. You're going to pay for this. Like something like that to try to get me to an ATM. So he's trying to rob me. And I'm like, I don't have a bank. I don't have a bank account, dude. How did I thankfully I said that? I was like, I don't have a bank account. I might have some money at the house. Yeah, I told you guys I turned it into that. But when he left, he was screaming that it wasn't about the money. And I'm like, what? And he flew off. Like, I was like getting ready. I was going to call 911. And he took off. And then the police said that there was a serial killer in the area around that time. And so what was to note is that on his last crime he did, because this guy does robberies as well, that he took the ATM card of his last victim. I go, yep, yeah, okay, fuck that. So if a guy ever does this, I mean, there's a couple ways they can get around it. I would first say that you don't have a bank account because it got shut down because you've been shitty with money or something. Just fucking, you know. But they could take if you had a purse or wallet and you did have it, and they might get it there. But here, luckily, in this case, that worked, and I may not have had a bank account at that minute. Like, I was trying to think about it. I go, what happened there? I'm gonna take you to an ATM. It's like, what fucking sane person does this? That's why I said, I go, that's scary because all he had to do was stand there with, no, nope, nope. Nope, I would never do that. Not with somebody I don't even know. Are you kidding? Planned murders long ahead of time, took extraordinary action to avoid detection. Unlike most serial killers, he did not have a victim profile, saying he chose a victim randomly. There you go. And he usually killed far from home. Yep, California. And never in the same area twice. On his murder trips, he kept his mobile phone turned off and paid for items with cash. He had no connections to any of his known victims. For the Courier murders, Keyes flew to Chicago, where he rented a car to drive 1,000 miles to Vermont, and then he used the murder kits he had hidden 2 years earlier to perform the murders. That's why I said it was so weird that the guy left the book and then he showed up like a month later or two and was like, can I come and get it? It's like, what? Where the fuck have you been? But I should say something on that case because, to my memory, and I can't really verify it, I thought that the number used, was local, but it may not be, but it also could be a burner phone. So that's something to keep in mind with Israel here because everybody had those prepaid phones sometimes at that time, back then. And to my knowledge, I just didn't pay attention. And I don't know if my phone at that time showed the incoming number thing. I don't remember how that went. I think I had a landline at that time and then, but I did also have a cell phone, a prepaid one or something like that at that time too. But I think they called I don't remember. But I don't recall. Okay, so sometimes what would happen, mostly when I deal with music people, they will sometimes have a number that the number was originally got from New York, right? Let's just, for example, like they are from New York. They used to work in New York. Then they moved out here and then they just kept their phone number from New York. And so like, I don't even know because it wasn't even in question when they were calling. like I wouldn't have thought much of it at the time because a lot of the music people had that thing going on too. So it's just like, oh, they're probably whatever. So I can't answer it, but there's a good chance that he may have done that stuff too. So, all right, moving on, because I think that's it. What I wanted to say about that other family to this family and why it was important that you get these kids very early out of a situation like that, because yes, they can turn into serial killers, and why they turned into a serial killer. And government here wants to allow it to happen because government keeps this, like they keep these things because they use it as their profiles, and so it's not like they didn't know any of this stuff, but how they're viewing it is a problem because they're not looking at themselves as the problem, right? They're not looking at the military thing as being a problem, and teaching kids, like young boys, to act this way is a problem. Having little children go hunting for fun is probably not a good thing. Teaching kids that God threw animals here, it's for them to murder and kill, is probably not a good thing either. Saying some shit like that, because it could stem off to, as you see, they then go murder women, right, with no fucks about it, or other men, right? Like you see the gangs, and you start seeing this thing, and it's like, yeah, I mean, for the most part, women were not the main hunters. But I was saying you might see it on a farm, right? So they were on a farm, and so when the mentality around it is like, we have to do this for survival, right? Like it's not supposed to be something you enjoy, just slaughtering animals. It's probably still even a bothersome thing to some of those people. Um, and then, but the mindset around there's a thing right there where you're seeing that mostly it's predominantly men doing it, and it's predominantly men murdering people. So if you start to dehumanize a bunch of things, yeah, you'll get this sort of combo cluster of a fuck coming out of it. So yeah, it probably wasn't a good thing. Hunting for fun, you shouldn't be hunting for fun. Nothing. Hunting was supposed to be meant for survival, right? Like you have to eat, right, so you don't die. And so I think some of those things right there, and then the yeah, there's a lot in it, you guys, and it's stemming off of the parental abuse on him from their psychotic religions. It doesn't matter which religion it is, they all have that same foundation of women submit to men, and men are the hunters, and they're the head of the household, and you cannot veer outside our religion in this house. And if you do, we're going to abuse the shit out of you. And we have these militant rules, and we're authoritarians. And like, there's this like massive like thing right there that's really bad.